Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have the power of a god? To shape the future according to your will? To decide the fate of entire worlds? Welcome to the fascinating and terrifying universe of YHWACH, the Quincy King. But who exactly is YHWACH? Why is he considered one of the most powerful and complex villains ever created? And how does his existence threaten not only the Soul Society but the very fabric of reality? To understand YHWACH, we need to delve deep into the history of the Quincy and the mythology of the Bleach universe. Our journey will take us through centuries of conflict, betrayal, and unimaginable power. Prepare yourselves for an epic tale of ambition, destiny, and the eternal struggle between life and death. It all begins more than 1,000 years ago, in a time shrouded in legends and mystery. YHWACH is born as the son of the Soul King, the divine entity that maintains balance between worlds. But this is no ordinary birth. YHWACH comes into the world as a child devoid of senses, unable to see, hear, speak, or move. Imagine the despair of a child condemned to a void and solitary existence. But YHWACH is not afraid. Somehow, he knows he will survive. And it is this unwavering conviction that awakens within him a unique and terrifying power. Everyone who touches YHWACH discovers that they gain something they lacked. Wounds are healed, diseases disappear, disabilities are reversed. It is as if YHWACH were a source of miracles. But there is a terrible price for these gifts. Each person healed by YHWACH has their life drastically shortened. And when they die, a part of their souls returns to the young Quincy, bringing with them all the knowledge and abilities they possessed in life. Thus begins YHWACH's reign as the father of the Quincy. His power grows exponentially, fed by the souls of those he saves. Slowly, he regains his senses and becomes a being of unimaginable power. But what drives YHWACH to become the fearsome antagonist we know? What motivates his seemingly cruel actions? To understand this, we need to look at YHWACH's unique worldview. YHWACH sees himself as a liberator, not a conqueror. In his mind, the existence of the Soul King and the Soul Society is an aberration that needs to be corrected. He believes that by overthrowing his father and unifying the worlds, he will create a universe without fear of death. It is a distorted and dangerous vision, but it stems from a genuine desire to end suffering. YHWACH experienced firsthand the horror of a void and isolated existence. His ultimate goal is to create a world where no one else has to go through that. Of course, YHWACH's methods are brutal and ruthless. He does not hesitate to sacrifice his own followers if it brings him closer to his goal. For him, the end justifies all means. And it is this relentless determination that makes him such a formidable enemy. Over the centuries, YHWACH builds his Quincy empire in the shadows. He recruits powerful followers, granting them unique abilities through his blood. These abilities, known as Skrift, transform the Sternritter into warriors capable of rivaling the most powerful Shinigami. But YHWACH's true power goes far beyond simply empowering his subordinates. As he absorbs more and more souls, his abilities evolve to near-divine levels. The pinnacle of this power is known as the Almighty. Imagine not only being able to see the future but alter it at will. To mold reality as if it were clay in your hands. This is the frightening power of YHWACH. He can literally choose the future he desires and make it a reality. It is a power that borders on the absolute. But even so, YHWACH is not satisfied. His ultimate goal is to absorb the Soul King himself, becoming the new linchpin that holds the worlds together. In his mind, only he is worthy and capable of ruling over everything. YHWACH's invasion of the Soul Society is one of the most epic and devastating moments in the entire Bleach series. In a matter of minutes, he and his Sternritter cause more destruction than any other enemy before them. YHWACH's power is so great that he manages to steal the Bankai of the legendary Genryusai Yamamoto, the most powerful Shinigami of all. And when he finally faces Yamamoto in battle, YHWACH demonstrates a shocking cruelty. He reveals that the YHWACH Yamamoto was fighting was actually an imposter, one of his soldiers who sacrificed himself to deceive the old Shinigami. The real YHWACH emerges from the shadows and kills Yamamoto in a brutal and ruthless manner. It is a moment that sets the tone for the rest of the series. YHWACH is not just powerful. He is relentless, cruel, and willing to do anything to achieve his goals. Yamamoto's death serves as a clear warning. No one is safe. But what makes YHWACH truly fascinating as an antagonist is the complexity of his personality and motivations. He is not a one-dimensional villain driven by a thirst for power. There are layers of depth to his character that make him terrifyingly human. On one hand, YHWACH shows genuine care for his Quincy followers. He calls them his children, and seems to feel a real connection with them. But at the same time, he does not hesitate to sacrifice them if it serves his larger plans. This duality extends to his worldview. YHWACH sees himself as a savior, not a conqueror. In his twisted mind, he is freeing the universe from a cruel cycle of life and death. He truly believes his actions will lead to a better world. It is this unwavering conviction that makes him so dangerous. YHWACH is not driven by greed or a thirst for power, but by a sincere belief that he is doing the right thing. And people who believe they are on the right side of history are capable of the greatest atrocities. The relationship between YHWACH and Ichigo Kurosaki, the protagonist of Bleach, is particularly fascinating. YHWACH sees Ichigo as his greatest creation, the ultimate result of centuries of genetic manipulation and careful planning. To YHWACH, Ichigo is the prodigal son who will finally return to the fold. He genuinely believes Ichigo will join him once he understands the truth about the world. It is a dynamic that adds an extra layer of tension and drama to their rivalry. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of YHWACH is his connection to the concept of destiny. His power to see and alter the future raises fascinating questions about free will and predestination. Are YHWACH's actions truly his own, or is he merely following a preordained path? This question becomes even more complex when we consider the cyclical nature of the conflict between Shinigami and Quincy. YHWACH seems trapped in an eternal loop of defeat and rebirth. Is he destined to fail, no matter how powerful he becomes? As the final battle approaches, YHWACH reaches truly divine levels of power. He manages to absorb the Soul King, becoming effectively the new god of that universe. It is a moment of triumph for YHWACH, but also the beginning of his downfall. For even with all his power, YHWACH cannot foresee or prevent his final defeat. In the end, he is defeated not just by brute force, but by something his power cannot fully comprehend: the strength of human connection and hope. YHWACH's defeat raises fascinating questions about the nature of power and destiny. Was his failure predestined from the start? Or was it his own arrogance that blinded him to the possibilities he could not foresee? In the end, YHWACH remains one of the most complex and fascinating antagonists ever created. He is simultaneously a ruthless monster and a tragic figure, trapped in an eternal cycle of destruction and rebirth. His story makes us question the nature of reality, the meaning of life and death, and the limits of human power. YHWACH may have been defeated, but his impact on the Bleach universe and the imagination of fans will continue to echo for a long time. And so we come to the end of our journey through the life and legacy of YHWACH, the Quincy King. But have we truly understood the full extent of his power and motivations? Or, like YHWACH himself, are we only seeing one possible future among infinite possibilities? For in the vast multiverse of fiction, who can say for sure that YHWACH did not achieve his goal in some alternate timeline? Perhaps, in some parallel universe, he truly did remake the world in his image. And if that were the case, what would that new world shaped by YHWACH look like? Would it really be the deathless paradise he envisioned? Or would it become a nightmare of eternal stagnation, deprived of the change and growth that come with the natural cycle of life and death? These are questions that will continue to intrigue and fascinate fans long after the series ends. For YHWACH, in all his complexity and contradiction, invites us to question our own beliefs about good and evil, about life and death, about destiny and free will. And perhaps that is YHWACH's true legacy, not as a villain to be feared and defeated, but as a dark mirror reflecting our own struggles with mortality and the meaning of existence. So, dear viewers, I leave you with one final question to ponder. If you had YHWACH's power to see and shape the future at will, what would you do? Would you try to create a perfect world, free of suffering? Or would you accept the imperfections of reality, recognizing that it is through struggle and change that we find true meaning? The answer, as YHWACH well knows, may very well determine the fate of entire worlds.